Hello and welcome to the November episode of TTP at Home. Now, we have been bringing you candidate interviews for the past several episodes, and you guys have loved them. Today is another good one. We are going to be talking to the candidates for Texas Attorney General. Let's do it.
Before we move to the interviews, let's go over a little bit of what's going on this month at True Texas Project. Topics at our monthly meetings include central bank digital currency, green energy, H-1B visas, which is a really hot topic these days, situational awareness, always important, the burden on the Texas taxpayer, Islamization of Texas, and bringing Bible education into government schools. So much good stuff for you. We've also got several statewide candidates making the rounds of our monthly meetings so that you can meet them in person, talk to them, and help make your own decisions about how to vote there.
You guys know the holidays are approaching, and that means we have parties galore. So make sure that you're checking our website and reading your Sunday newsletter, because that's where we'll announce that, Denton County has a party next weekend, or Harris County has a party going on, right? So we're getting ready for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. We have already released our tickets for our big Christmas party on December 11th. So make sure you get those.
Yes, and be sure to tell all of the young people that you know about our scholarship contest. Those prizes will be awarded at the Christmas party on December 11th. The winners get free tickets to the Christmas party itself and maybe win some cool cash. The deadline to apply for that is November 30th, and all the details are on the website under scholarships.
All right, so we do have another opportunity for the youth in Texas this month. We have our Certified True Texan Training for Youth happening on November 22nd in Leander. So this is the youth version of our 5 classes that we normally offer for adults, enabling you to become a certified true Texan. We're holding them in Leander, like I said, on November 22nd. So make sure you tell the youth in your life to get there.
Okay, with all that housekeeping out of the way, let's get to the 3 interviews that we've done for candidates for the state attorney general. As you know, America's best attorney general, Ken Paxton, is leaving that position to run for Senate. And we have 3 good candidates for you to meet with the interviews we've recorded. Okay, today we are focusing on the Attorney General's race, and we are happy to welcome Aaron Reitz, one of the candidates. There are several, and it's turning out to be a bit of a contentious race, I think. So welcome, Aaron. We're glad to have you with us today. Why don't we start by just having you briefly tell us a little bit about yourself, your background.
Sure.
Where you're from, where you're coming from, and why you're running for Attorney General.
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me, Fran and Julie. This is great to be here. Been a longtime fan and ally of the True Texas Project, and so it's great to be able to come and visit with you guys and talk in person.
We appreciate that.
So before I announced my run for Texas AG, I served in the presidentially appointed Senate-confirmed role of the head of the Office of Legal Policy at DOJ. And when President Trump nominated me back in December of 2024, he said in his Truth Social post announcing it, he said, "Aaron Reitz is a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution." And the reason why he said that I'm a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution is he looked at my background. He saw somebody who was a Marine Corps officer, an Afghanistan war veteran, a Texas Supreme Court law clerk under now Chief Justice Jimmy Blacklock, someone who spent several years in private practice, someone who was Ken Paxton's deputy and offensive coordinator, leading the Texas v. Biden docket for 3 years, someone who was Senator Ted Cruz's chief of staff, and then ultimately got elevated to the Justice Department. And so that's sort of my professional background. But on the personal level, my wife and I are both from San Antonio. We met in middle school. We started dating as senior year in high school. We got engaged in college. We got married right after I had to move fast because I saw my hair thinning. And so I said, look, this is a really good girl. I want to marry this girl before it gets any worse on top. And so together, Meredith and I, we have 4 young children all under the age of 13. They are true believers in my mission, just like I am. And so I'm running to be Texas Attorney General because I think that Texans want what President Trump said about me. Texans want a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution, someone who is covered in the battle scars that voters need to see to know that they're not just all talk, that they have an actual record litigating, investigating, suing, defending, and appealing on all the major issues that you all, your listeners, True Texas Project supporters care about. I'm the only candidate in the race with that kind of record to give you the confidence that I'm going to make an excellent Attorney General.
Okay, I just need to correct something very quickly. When I met my husband, he had hair, and I have no recollection of it. When he shaved his head, I was like, oh my gosh, who's that? Okay, so it's okay to be bald.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic to be bald. In fact, as my grandfather used to tell me when he tried to comfort my situation, he would say, grass doesn't grow on busy streets. And so, it's fine. We love it.
I like a bald head, just going on record.
Oh, me too. And many people do, in fact.
So I had never, until this interview, I had never met you in person.
Which is shocking, I know.
It is shocking because we do have many mutual friends.
Yeah.
But the one thing I had noticed on social media, I was like, he doesn't seem to have a fire under him. And now I'm speaking to you and I'm like, oh, that couldn't have been further from the truth. You do have a passion for this.
Totally passionate about it. And look, this is my first time running statewide. And I think there's going to be a lot of new voters that are just meeting me for the first time. I think that's great. Our ceiling is really, really high. And we've only been live in this campaign for like 2.5 or 3 months. And
by the time this airs, though, it'll be longer.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Yes, excuse me. But we've only been running, but we have this momentum that is just incredible. And more people are learning about my background, what I have to offer, the people that I've worked with, the things that I've done to advance law, order, justice, liberty, and the Constitution in Texas. And so I think that's why things are catching fire, because there is a real fire here. And the grassroots are rallying around this flag. Donors are rallying around this flag and investing their capital to say, this is the guy that we want to propel to succeed Ken Paxton. So I'm bringing the fire.
And so you have a very, very significant endorsement from Ken Paxton.
That's exactly right.
Tell me how that's going to play out. Like, has that given you a boost? What's the weight of that?
A huge boost, Now, you guys know that the overwhelming majority of Republican primary voters are Trump and Paxton aligned. So they want a candidate who is also Trump and Paxton aligned. My opponents are not at all. In fact, my 3 opponents right now, who knows, maybe it grows, but there's 4 of us in the race. 3 of them are aggressively anti-Paxton. And one of them is one of the biggest never-Trumpers in the United States government. And so folks look at me and they say, okay, this guy was fully vetted and selected by President Trump, fully vetted and selected by Attorney General Paxton. The number one thing that I hear from people is they're excited that Ken Paxton's running for the Senate. He's done a fantastic job as our Attorney General for the past decade, and they're excited to see him go and represent us in Washington. But they have a follow-up comment, and they say, who could possibly keep his foot on the gas and keep fighting in this direction? Who knows what who knows what they're doing moving forward? And I think with Paxton's endorsement, it makes it clear to primary voters that Aaron Reitz is the only guy that can do this. My 3 other opponents either don't have the background, they don't have the street cred, they don't have the record, or they're belligerently anti-MAGA, anti-Trump, and anti-Paxton. All of those things are disqualifying for this race. Under the Texas Constitution, it says in Article 4, Section 22, it says the Attorney General shall represent the state of Texas in all courts and pleas. This is a legal executive branch job. It is not a legislative job. And so for a lot of people that listen to your show, they're very engaged with the Texas legislative process, and that's great. We need good laws. We need great statutes. We need a good and fair process that delivers conservative victories for Texas. But as soon as the legislation is signed into law, the only thing that matters is who is going to be the state's lawyer that enforces and defends those laws. And I'm the only one with a proven record doing that exact thing. So when Paxton says Aaron Reitz has my endorsement, that speaks volumes, I think.
Yeah, and one of the things I read about you when I was researching is that you were the one that led the fight for Paxton in the 2020 election challenges.
Yes.
That must have been interesting. And I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. We've recognized Ken Paxton as a fighter for Texas,
Yes.
defending Texas law and the people of Texas. And we need that kind of fighter. And I'll bet you had to have that in 2020. What was that like?
It was a roller coaster. I'll never forget. I started with Paxton in October of 2020 when what I call the coup happened, when people were unjustly accusing him of various things. And then the election in November was called for Biden. I say called for Biden because it wasn't actually resolved at that time. It was called for Biden. And President Trump went around the country looking for champions to challenge on constitutional grounds the manner in which certain states ran their elections. And so we didn't bring a fraud claim. We had other patriots bringing fraud claims in different courts around the state and the nation. The claim that we brought was arguing that in at least 4 states, they had violated the United States Constitution's Electors Clause, which says that only state legislators and the legislatures can manage their elections. Yeah. But in the COVID era, COVID was used as a pretext for state executive branches and judicial branches to usurp the management of those elections and then flip things and rig things. And so in early December, we filed Texas v. Pennsylvania directly with the U.S. Supreme Court, challenging on constitutional grounds the manner in which that election was run. 2 days later, we're in the Oval Office with President Trump. We're having a great time. We think that we're going to come out victorious. Sadly, the United States Supreme Court denied us on procedural grounds, didn't comment on the merits of the case. And then when Joe Biden got sworn in January of 2021, just about a month later, that's when our fight really began. And that's why Paxton assigned me as his offensive coordinator. He was the head coach of our litigation operations. I was the head coach, and I was primarily responsible for leading the Texas v. Biden docket. So when I was a deputy there, I quarterbacked, now I'm having too many football analogies. I think the quarterback, I led 46 lawsuits against the 46th president of the United States with an 85% win rate in federal court. So this was just an incredible time. And that's why I go back. I say, whether your issue is suing libs, making them lose in court, standing up for election integrity, bringing the heat to those who want to rig our elections or cast a cloud of uncertainty on our elections, there's only one candidate in this race who's got the credibility and the experience to do that. Meanwhile, one of my leading opponents in this race was calling for President Trump's impeachment. He was standing with Mike Pence in the well of the United States House. It's really extraordinary, but I think provides voters and your listeners a stark contrast between me and Chip Roy, one of my opponents in this race, who was saying that because of what was going on with the election fraud, that President Trump should be impeached, that he was engaging in impeachable conduct, and that Mike Pence saved the country from what would have been something terrible. That's disqualifying. It's utterly disqualifying. And so I had a fun time with that, and I know what side I was on, and I think voters will come to understand that I was on the side of election integrity while my opponents were either against it or missing in action.
So the contrast between you and Chip Roy, there's some pretty stark, I mean, you've mentioned them, there's some pretty stark differences. Mm-hmm. What would somebody that is supporting Chip say about you? Like, what are the negatives?
Well, I think that they would both agree that Chip and I have great hairstyles. That's the one thing that Chip and I have in common. Look, I think that Chip has a fight in him, but he has a knack for fighting with all of the wrong people. It's good to be a conservative fighter and fight with the right people. You take the fight to squishes. We take the fight to the establishment. We take the fight to far-left liberals. We take the fight to Democrats. That's the right kind of fight to have. But sadly, Chip Roy has defined his career by fighting against 2 people and the movements that they represent. Number 1, Paxton, and number 2, Trump. From the beginning, Chip Roy is one of the most aggressively anti-Trump, anti-MAGA, never-Trumpers in the United States Congress. We all know, we've seen the tweets between him and the president. The president has no taste for Chip Roy. And by the way, none of his colleagues do either, which is why he's trying to get a promotion out of his job in the United States Congress. I don't know what their attacks would be on me. I think that they would just try to say, well, Chip is the real fighter. Chip is the guy who's been in it. I don't buy that. I think this is a guy who has spent his political career just going to war with conservative champs like Paxton. He called for Paxton's resignation. He called for his impeachment. He became an ally of those who were trying to impeach him and then convict him in the Senate. He was the first federal elected official to call for Paxton's resignation in October of 2020. Again, disqualifying. This is somebody who is anti-Paxton and anti-Trump. You contrast that with me. I have served under both of those men. I have worked under them. I have advanced their agendas. I've been on the cutting legal edge of the Trump and Paxton law and order agendas. So I don't know what they're going to attack me with. I don't really care. None of it's going to stick. That's fine. I know what lane I'm running in, and so I wish them the best on the campaign.
There's a lot of strength behind what you're saying. The only thing I was able to find when I was looking for, was that you had run for office before and not won.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yes. Several years ago, I did run for state representative. I had no idea what I was doing, and I jumped in because I felt the call to serve. I mean, this is something that, with you guys founding an organization like this, sometimes you feel a calling, you answer the call to serve. Duty is ours. The results are God's. And look, I've been through a lot of life experiences since then. I like to think I know what I'm doing now at this point. But I remember this. I remember a talk. I was at a dinner with a man named David Sachs, who is one of President Trump's biggest donors. In fact, I think he might be the number one Trump donor. And one of the things, and he's a venture capitalist, so he invests in entrepreneurs and businessmen and women. And he said, I'm always very reluctant to invest in an entrepreneur who doesn't have a failed business venture under his or her belt. And the reason for that is because you really don't learn certain lessons unless you feel the painful ones.
Right.
And so, yes, I ran for state rep. It didn't go so well, but you know what? I'm proud of that race. My family enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. I stuck by my principles, and here we are several years later, and we're running the most high momentum, high energy, positive, winning, aggressive, energetic campaign, and we're going to win this thing.
Okay.
Can we expect to see a televised debate between you and the other candidates at some point in time?
I very much hope so. I have a feeling, given the conduct of my opponents so far, that they will avoid a debate because they're not ready for this kind of fight. Some of my opponents have gotten into office and risen through the ranks by buying offices, by buying endorsements, by spending inherited money. They have not been punched in the mouth before on a debate stage. And so to anybody who wants to host a debate or a forum or whatever, I would gladly.
I would love to host one.
You
but
should.
I don't know if we
Let's
can get
host
everybody
it.
to show up.
No, I actually don't think that you will, but you can guarantee that it'll be the first one to arrive. And I think that what folks are going to see, what I like about this race, it's a crowded field. I agree with that, right? And crowded fields are tough. But the contrasts among the candidates could not be more clear. You only have one candidate in the race who the president and Paxton have fully vetted, fully tested, and trusted, and called a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution. My opponents, they have no legal record. They have no record litigating, investigating, defending, suing, and appealing on the things that people care about. They don't have the backing of the people that Republican primary voters flock to and rally to. And so I'm really the only choice. The rest of them are going to scramble for the scraps, but the Republican primary voters, they are rallying around this flag. And I look forward to putting that on full display at debates, speeches, panels, whatever you want to do, I'll be there.
Okay. So normally when we interview people, they're like running for a legislative position.
Yeah.
Like, what are your, what do you want to change and what bills do you want to push or what do you want to cut? And so I don't really have that with you, but I want to, before we run out of time, I want to just give you a chance to cover anything we haven't already covered. Like, what are your goals for this position? And then definitely mention your website.
For sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm glad that you brought that up, Julia, actually, because a lot of the grassroots, our patriots out there who we all love and we work with and we spend time with, a lot of their operations, I mean, just logistically, their orientation is legislatively oriented, right? It's the hashtag TextLeg world. It's this bill, that bill, this committee, that committee. Who's advancing this? How did it get killed? Who's responsible?
Right.
Who's on the back mic? Who's on the front mic?
That's what we live.
Right? That is so important because that's like an organic process. The legislative process is a living, breathing process that requires the grassroots to be really engaged. And so when people are now coming to a state AG race for the first time in over a decade, sometimes their paradigm, their orientation is still legislatively oriented. And that's why I always cite Article 4, Section 22 of the Texas Constitution, which makes clear the Attorney General shall represent the state of Texas in all courts and pleas. This is a legal job. It is an executive branch job. Voters are not choosing a legislator. This is not a deal-making role. This is a law enforcement role. It is a chief executive of the largest red state law firm in the country that has national impact, and we've all seen that. That's the criteria that voters need to evaluate the candidates by, not by what bills did they vote for, which lobbyists wrote the bill for them, and which master greenlighted them to move it through or pre-bake it to get canceled so that, you know what I mean? Like that is a process. That is not a process that I have been involved in. And so if people are looking at what's his legislative record, I don't have one.
Right.
But I do have a record litigating, investigating, suing, defending, appealing on all of the major legal issues in a lawfare environment on offense and defense, the kinds of things that make me supremely qualified for AG. So what am I going to do? My priorities, there's going to be 2 chapters to my administration as the next Texas AG. It's a 4-year term, as people know. I'll get sworn in January of 2027. The first 2 years, we're still going to have President Trump in office. So it is going to be critical at that point to have a deep partnership with the Trump administration to advance the America First law and order agenda for 2 years. That's critical. I was a member of the administration. I've been vetted and selected by the administration. 20 different people who I served with, from Attorney General Bondi, the Deputy Attorney General, the FBI Director, the Weaponization Czar, the Border Czar, Tom Homan, all of these people put out statements of support for me when I launched my campaign for AG. Why? Because they know that they need an ally in Texas to advance that America First law and order agenda. So for 2 years, it's going to be deep integration and partnership with the Trump admin. In 2028, right in the middle of my tenure as AG, there's going to be a presidential election. I'm optimistic that we're going to get another Republican because things are going very well, right?
I'm glad you said that, because I get so tired of everybody saying, well, we're going to lose it in 2030.
No, we're not. Look, President Trump's approval ratings, the trajectory, the economy, everything is, we're deporting people en masse. We have a net zero illegal immigration. I mean, we are having a good and fun time, and the public polling and the support reflects for President Trump. So I think that we're going to get a Republican in 2028. If we don't, this is what I'll say is, if we don't, God forbid, right? Prayers up that we don't. And let's get the activists out at the right time to make sure that we don't. But if we do get a Democrat in the White House, I am going to lead the Texas Attorney General's office in the most aggressively offensive posture in all of Texas history. And there's only one person who has any experience leading the fight of Texas v. Feds, Texas v. Libs, Texas v. Dems, Texas v. Soros. I'm the only one. I'm the only one
to fight.
Yeah, there's so many to fight. But there's only one person who has a record actually doing those things. It's why Attorney General Paxton endorsed me. It's why the National Border Patrol Council endorsed me. It's why CPAC endorsed me. It's because these national war-oriented conservative organizations say, Reitz is the guy. This is the general that we trust to lead legal and litigation troops into battle against the left. Because if a Democrat gets sworn in the White House in 2028, they absolutely are going to try to turn Texas into something it's not, something it never should be, and something under my watch it never will be. So that's what I'm going to do as Texas Attorney General.
It's a great interview. You have a lot of power and passion in you, and I love it. Go ahead and give your website.
Yes, my website is aaronreitz.com, AARONREITZ.com. And folks can also follow me on, if you just search for my name, Aaron Reitz, you'll find me on all social media. But I'm particularly active on X, so folks can find me at Aaron_Reitz, AARON_REITZ.
Okay, perfect. Fran, you got anything else?
Nope. I think that was a great interview. I love your passion and enthusiasm, and also the way you easily talk about all of these things. I think that's going to go a long way for you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share my message with your viewers. And True Texas Project fans can trust that I'm going to be a very close ally and friend as the next Texas Attorney General.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Welcome to our newest interview. We have with us today Chip Roy, who is running for Texas Attorney General. Obviously, he's currently a congressman, I guess stepping down from that. But let's jump right into the interview because obviously we only have, 15, 20 minutes that we do these in. And we have a lot of questions for you.
Sure.
So thank you for being here, first of all.
Happy to do it.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. This is kind of an interesting interview for me because there has been so much said against you by the grassroots, like they would never vote for you. And at the same time, you have amazing endorsements. And so it was a real conflict for me. And so we're going to get to the heart of all the things we're seeing on social media about you, not an attack, but we just want to hear from you. What is your answer to these accusations? And then I want to get into the meat of it. Like, what are you going to do as Attorney General?
Sure.
Okay. So let's just start with George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I see on social media, I mean, I'm sure you've seen them. There's just all kinds of graphics listing a whole slew of things that you have supported or not supported that we don't appreciate as grassroots. So we'll start with George Floyd.
In the summer of 2020, when the country was burning, there was nobody who was out there more actively fighting and defending cops. That's why I'm getting enormous amount of support from law enforcement. With respect to George Floyd, I was highly critical of Floyd and of how a lot of that went down. The only thing I did that has been stretched by a handful of influencers is I retweeted a professor who said that Floyd was a Christian. And in that, I said, well, good. I'm glad he'll know his Heavenly Father. And so that has been turned into somehow as a defender of George Floyd.
Okay.
So my answer is, I want everybody to know Jesus, and I want everybody to be their Heavenly Father, no matter what mistakes they make in the world. That's it.
Okay, first of all, when someone is willing to say the word Jesus, that already puts them up here because most people will say God or something that's less personal. But when you can use the word Jesus, tell me about your faith.
I am a Christian, have been since I was 11 years old, 1983. I would tell you that that's evolved over time. My faith got strengthened when I went through cancer. When I had Hodgkin's lymphoma back in 2011, I had a 2-year-old son and a 4-month-old daughter. And that's a wake-up call pretty quick. And my faith has just gotten even stronger since then. And I went to Hyde Park Baptist Church as a member there for 25 years. My wife and I got married there, and this is in Austin. My kids were baptized there, we've since the pastor left. So now we go to a PCA Presbyterian church where a lot of my kids' friends are from the classical Christian school they go to, which is the Regent School of Austin. So faith is a huge part of my belief system. And frankly, and I would say this really quickly, and this is a short podcast, we have got to get this country back to our core founding principles that were rooted in that faith. And this march of Islam that is happening in Texas has got to be stopped. And it's one of the primary drivers for me running for Attorney General.
It's definitely something I want to talk about more.
Me too.
What your plans are. But let's get through this list of other things. You supported the impeachment of Trump?
False. I voted against impeachment loudly. I disagreed with the impeachment of President Trump. Both impeachments, by the way. I was serving in Congress in both of the impeachment votes. So if you back up, and this is really important, from 2020 on, since then I've been actively involved in the election integrity fight. Through 2020, I was talking about mail-in ballots before we got to November. I was calling on us to do what we need to do to protect against the fraud that was inevitably going to occur. We then watched the fraud that was occurring. We know that there was rampant fraud on Election Day. 2 days after the election, I went to Atlanta, Georgia. I went and met with Cleta Mitchell, one of the president's lawyers, one of my dear friends, who, by the way, has endorsed me, went and met with Cleta because Fulton County was a mess. Georgia was a mess. Then immediately was engaging with Mark Meadows, one of my dear friends, who's also endorsed me. And Mark and I were texting about, we need ammo. That was a quote that got put out and released my text when they got subpoenaed. New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, they put these all out and they attacked me as being a part of the grand conspiracy. Well, all during that time, I was fighting because there was one thing I knew. We needed desperately to get any state, to come forward with a different slate of electors. We had to prove that up before we got to the dates that were going to hit us in December, and then obviously January, getting to January 6th when we have the votes on the electors. Fast forward. So then this is how this comes up. January 6th, all of that occurs. Where I disagreed, the crux of my disagreement was that we could reject the electors. under no circumstances do I think another state can tell Texas what our electors are. And I don't think I can go tell another state what their electors are. So when, and this is the word, when the president was pressuring the vice president to reject the electors, that's where I disagreed. And I disagreed with the president on that. And for me, I said in a floor speech that it was a potentially impeachable conduct to tell the vice president to do something that I think is an unconstitutional thing. I understand why. And look, it was a crazy, hectic day and moment in January 6th. I might, change that word choice in retrospect, but I opposed the impeachment and I've strongly supported the president at every turn. But the bottom line is I strongly opposed the impeachment.
I remember saying that to my husband that day, that the vice president doesn't have the authority to reject the election. That's not the way the Constitution works.
So if Fran is backing you up on that, that's pretty solid.
Well, that's my view, and it was a strong view, and it was a tough view because I had colleagues and friends and people that took a different position. Mike Lee is a good friend of mine. He took the same position I did. Ted Cruz is a good friend of mine. Who has endorsed me. He took the other position. There was a lot of disagreeing opinions at that time, but and there were strong words that were said. And again, you can kind of debate how you handle it in retrospect. January 6th was a imperfect day in a number of different respects, but here's the bottom line. President Trump, I've stood alongside him in every election when we were getting him to get elected and through the general election. And I've been standing alongside the president since he's been in this term, fighting to get the big, beautiful bill accomplished, fighting to get legislation passed. The SAVE Act, which was my bill that I drafted, that we passed in the House last year during his election, during 2024, was to guarantee that only American citizens can vote in American elections. The House passed it. Unfortunately, the Senate killed it.
Yeah.
But it's an important tool, and we're elevating it, and hopefully we can get it past the senators.
It's such an important bill. And you just brought up a question for me. What is President Trump saying about you?
Well, so the president and I have gotten to know each other very well, particularly through this last 9-10 months. And I would sum it up this way. I obviously represent Kerrville, and I've had to deal with the tragic events down there. And the president came to Kerrville, and you will remember that was the week after we had just gotten the big, beautiful bill done. In fact, we voted on the big, beautiful bill on the 3rd, and I was supposed to be in Kerrville. The president asked me and others to stay back for the bill signing. So I said, okay, Mr. President, we'll do that. Then I woke up on the 4th to all the floods, and I had to get to Kerrville. So I wasn't there for the bill signing, went to Kerrville. The next week, the president comes, and he was introducing, it was on Fox, it was all the stuff, and he goes around and he introduces all the members, and he gets to Chip, and he goes, Chip Roy, he goes, it's his district, and, Chip and I spent a lot of time together last week on the big, beautiful bill, because, we've been negotiating until 3 a.m. And he goes, he's not easy, but he's good. And I think that kind of summarizes where we are.
There.
I think there's a certain level of respect because, look, I represent Article 1. I represent 750,000 Texans, an enormous number of whom love and support the president as I do. But I've got to hold up Article 1. I got to go fight when I'm up there in Congress and then negotiate. And he likes deal making. And we landed the plane in a really good bill.
And we don't want easy.
Correct.
We want what's right. We want people to stand up and
strong
fight.
Voice.
Yeah. Yes, strong voice.
Which incidentally, I mentioned off camera that I spoke with Wade Miller about you, who is a big, good friend of True Texas Project.
My first chief of staff.
And he said the same thing, that if you want someone that's going to say what needs to be said, regardless of the consequences, then you're the guy. So that was a big endorsement, in my opinion. But there are 2 more things I want to get through before we get to the meat of the campaign. You agreed with Mike Pence on the J6ers.
So I don't 100% know what that criticism is. What I have done for the J6ers has been actually an enormous amount of work over the last 4 or 5 years. Right after everything went down, I set out immediately going after DOJ, the bad, obviously, DOJ under Biden, pressing them on what was happening with the J6ers, doing inquiries, sending letters to the Department of Justice, pushing my colleagues in the House to try to get information. I think I sent 3 different letters that year trying to elevate the issue, because it's a limit when you in that position of what you can do if you don't hold a gavel. So I was pushing our leadership and saying, guys, we need to do more on this. We could never really get a good hearing on it. And they didn't want to have it because they thought it was politically not good. So Marjorie Taylor Greene and I joined with her. We had an unofficial hearing to elevate and bring J6ers forward to be able to put their story forward. My staff and I have met with dozens of J6ers to try to help them. Mm-hmm. I held a meeting in November of 21 with about, I'd say maybe 12 of my colleagues and about 10 of the lawyers that were representing J6ers, worked with Julie Kelly, trying to figure out how we could elevate the issues. And then, paying attention to the conditions at the jail cells in
Mm-hmm.
DC. And then importantly, when the pardons happened, they weren't letting them out. And I was down there with my colleagues at the jail in DC, and we were demanding that they release them. Yeah. So I'm not sure where that's coming from. I think that might go back to my point about some people I think that's getting to the January 6th question about whether you were standing with Pence or not with respect to accepting the electors. In that moment, for me, the vice president had to count the electors. That was where there was the difference of opinion on January 6th.
Mm-hmm. I love that we can just tick through these and say, because none of these accusations really match the Chip Roy that we know in action. So I love going through these, and this will be the last one.
Sure.
You supported the impeachment of Paxton. Now, and I think probably that's where a lot of these tweets are coming from that are against you.
Sure.
Tell me about your relationship with Paxton.
So Ken and I have known each other for a long time. So let me just answer that straight up. At no time did I ever call for or support the impeachment of Ken Paxton. What I did do back in 2020, when certain things were going on, I did stand behind some of the people that worked for him that obviously had disagreements of opinion with him. And I wanted to back them up. Some of them were friends of mine, and they were being attacked. And that included, of course, during the impeachment proceedings, again, which I didn't call for, had nothing to do with, and didn't endorse or support. But a friend of mine, David Maxwell, was one of the guys testifying. And he was a 30-year Texas Ranger. He solved his own sister's homicide case. He's battling cancer while he was testifying. He's a friend. So I backed him up. And that's just how I am. I'm going to defend my friends. Ken and I haven't always agreed on every single thing, but the guy's been killing it in the job, and he's a conservative, unflinchingly conservative, and has filed enormously important litigation, has done a lot of great work in the AG's office with a lot of people that I know and respect. Mm-hmm. And it's why I went to work for him. It was why I was his first assistant attorney general, is because we share the same values of what we want to try to accomplish with respect to our conservative beliefs and fighting for the people of Texas. Sometimes you just have to agree to disagree in terms of how you do things. Adams and Jefferson didn't agree, right? It's just there are things that happen in the political world, and we can agree to disagree.
Okay, well, you heard it straight from him. I appreciate you addressing these issues head on. I know it's probably not always comfortable, but I mean, if you believe in what you believe in, who cares, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's really important to me. Is you got to stand up and say what you believe, and then go fight for it, and then however the chips fall, so to speak, they fall. That is what it is. I mean, put my faith in the good Lord. I don't,
I'm very much the same as you, so I appreciate that. But okay, then let's get to the office of Attorney General.
Sure.
Why would you leave Congress to run for Attorney General?
So I'd say there's sort of two big reasons. One is a personal one. My kids are 16 and 14. I've spent almost 7 years now flying and commuting to DC. My wife is a saint. My kids go to classical Christian school, so they've got a community around them, which is great. But I don't want to wake up and they're gone. So I want to be back in Texas on a personal level, but also more importantly, from a professional standpoint, not more important than the personal, but I mean important from the professional view. I think I've done what I can do as 1/435th of 1/2 of 1/3 of the federal government.
Yeah.
I have tried to change the town in the speaker's fight and more power for conservatives and the Rules Committee and Appropriations Committee and things that we've been doing and getting votes and trying to constrain spending, working with the president. Russ Vought is one of my best friends at OMB. We've been doing a lot of great stuff, and I'm proud of it. Mm-hmm. But at some point, you got to look at where you think your skills can be used the best. I'm a former federal prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office, the former first assistant attorney general. So I've been in there. I know how it works. I've been in the thick of the fight, whether it was as a staffer working for Ted Cruz as his chief of staff, or whether it has been as a member of Congress on the House Judiciary Committee. I know these issues. I know them well, and we can't lose Texas. And Texas is under assault. It just is. Soros DAs, the Wren Collective, all the stuff that's putting criminals on the streets. This is in Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, and Houston. We can't have that. This is Texas. We can't have Islamists and Sharia law adherents marching into Texas with the state with the most mosques of any state in the country, and with Epic City and with all the things that we see going on. That can't happen, or we lose our home. And if we lose Texas, we lose America. So I think we need an attorney general with the backbone and the skill and the background to stand up and defend Texas, and prayed about it and thought about it. And after the Kerrville floods, working with law enforcement, engaging with DPS, engaging with the local guys and sheriffs, I just had a heart and a calling to be back and working with law enforcement and to defend and protect the state.
Tell me how you would handle going against Abbott, because that's a big argument I have with so many of our politicians. Nobody wants to go against what Abbott wants. And so a lot of things just kind of get pushed under the rug or glossed over. I've been told you wouldn't be that way. Am I right?
I believe in standing up to deliver for the people of Texas, whatever that takes. And when I agree with the governor, I'm going to stand up and fight and defend the governor, defend his prerogatives, because he's the governor of this state. When I disagree with the governor, as I did, for example, during the shutdown, COVID shutdown, and we had, restaurants and, vineyards and music venues that Luckenbach and all these places that were just getting hammered. And I was like, we've got to open up, right? And so I leaned hard and hot into that fight. School choice, not this last session, but the one before. School choice was nowhere near where it needed to be. It wasn't good enough. It wasn't universal enough. It came with a massive price tag going to all of the public schools to keep feeding the beast in this state. And I opposed it pretty loudly, and I kind of got into it with a few folks in Austin about that.
So did we.
And I think, and even this one, I kind of held back a little bit on this one because it was moving forward and it was better, but even there wasn't where it needed to be, right? It's not what we need. So I'll say that. I will stand up and do it. I've done it before. I certainly do it in Washington. It won't be any different in Texas. But I will say this. You fight and you push and you pull, but then you figure out how to come together as a team to go beat the enemy. And the enemy of the Marxists and the leftists that want to take away our way of life, we got to go beat them. So the big, beautiful bill, was it what I would draft? No. I would have done more. I would have cut more. I would have had more things in there for healthcare freedom and things that I wanted to see. And I would have fully gotten rid of all the Green New Scam subsidies. But we got half of them, right? We got $1 trillion of Medicaid reforms. And that took an enormous amount of work and negotiation. At some point, you have to figure out how to take a win and then go take the next win.
Yeah, I like that. And one of my big concerns, because I'm very closely involved with the legislature and what goes on there, is we pass so many laws within the legislature and then nobody enforces them. Right. An example is the dirty books thing. We pass a law, no dirty books in schools, and we still have them. The DEI thing, we passed the law, quit using DEI in your hiring practices in universities. They're still doing it. So I'm concerned about the person in the AG's office. Will you be really paying attention to all of those things within the state of Texas? And I wonder if your work in Congress has distanced you from what's going on in Texas. Can you talk about how you would deal with that and how you've stayed in touch with Texas politics?
Well, let me answer that first. I stay in touch with Texas politics. I've got so many friends here, pay attention to it. As I just said, engaging on election integrity. I was the only member of Congress to come testify for election integrity in 21 at the session. Yeah. Because this is our home. I used to get in trouble because I'd push the envelope a little bit. They say, well, we're not allowed to do certain things under congressional ethics rules about, when you start engaging with the state stuff. Like, it's a weird. And I'm like, look, guys, I represent Texans and I'm going to fight on this stuff. You guys, that's
you're
nonsense.
A voter in Texas.
Right, exactly. And it's really important, and I've been paying attention to it. I also have kids. I pay attention to the school issues a lot, even though my kids go to a private school. That almost makes me pay attention to them even more. And then I represent so many Texans where they're dealing with school issues and the shutdown stuff, fentanyl, the border, all these issues. Yeah. So I've been in touch in the law enforcement community. But so the answer to your question is, this would be a major priority for me.
Good.
You have to go enforce the law. And here's one of the kickers, right? In Texas, and a lot of states, but Texas in particular, we have a lot of devolved power with respect to DAs and with respect to local law enforcement having the bulk of the power. And I think the legislature needs to give, I think, enhanced tools to the AG to be able to go out and carry out some of the prosecutions of crimes and to enforce some of these laws. So, for example, take the Soros DAs and the funding of those guys, and then they let criminals out. I think the AG ought to be able to have original jurisdiction over some of that stuff.
I do too.
And be able to go in and say, no, Austin, you're not going to let these criminals out. These are Texas streets too. They're not just Austin streets. And I think we ought to have more tools at our, disposal to be able to do that. But I think you can also use the bully pulpit of the AG's office. Like, go straight into those jurisdictions, go into those school districts, go into San Antonio and call out the DA for letting out a criminal that then went on to shoot a cop. Call him out. Do a press conference. Be right in front of his door.
Great.
Be active doing that. And that's frankly what I've done in Washington. And I would bring that to back to Texas.
I love that you say that you would use the bully pulpit, because I think that Paxton has done that very well, and we would hate to lose that powerful voice. Yeah. So that's important.
And I think we need to even do it more. And I don't mean that as a criticism. I just think that's the time we're in, right? Yes. Things have evolved and changed. We're in an aggressive time where we need to use that bully pulpit almost daily to highlight the stuff. Take, Brian Harrison, right? Going after A&M. Okay. He graduated from A&M. My wife went to A&M. I love A&M. It's, but they do need to be called out when they've got these ridiculous classes. My kids do 4-H, right? We had this manual, and that the A&M Ag Extension or whatever, I can't remember how it's organized, but they had a hand in this 4-H manual that had this whole section on, it was, woke crap in a section in the 4-H book. And so I've reached out to A&M. It's gone now.
Oh, nice.
You have to go, put your foot on the gas to go stop all this stuff.
Yeah. I think so many times we just roll our eyes and say, oh, it's here too. And we move on because it seems like we're never going to make a difference. But you spoke up and made that difference. And thank you for that. We're probably out of time. I didn't even turn on the timer because I knew we had so many questions for you. And I wanted to give you time to.
Well, it goes as long as you all want, but I don't know what you're able to do. But
what I want to know from you before we close is, this is a hard race. Yeah. Like, people love Aaron Reitz. People love Mays Middleton. They've got great records. They love you. So how do people make that determination? Like, what sets you apart from Mays and what sets you apart from Aaron?
Well, first of all, I have argued cases in a courtroom as a federal prosecutor. Neither of those gentlemen have done that. I have been the first assistant attorney general. And while I know Aaron worked in the AG's office, there's a difference. And when you're the first assistant, you have to pay attention to the entirety of that thing as the first assistant, working for the AG. But importantly, look, I've got the battle scars in my own name. I've got the battle scars for every fight that I've taken on. And these aren't small things, right? When you are sitting on the floor of the House and you're saying no to seating the Speaker of the House, and for 3 days, the entire country is watching, and your phone's blowing up by conservatives all across the state of Texas, and I'm talking people that I don't even know quotes, conservative supporters. Chip, what are you doing? You're going to turn this over. You're going to give the speakership to Hakeem Jeffries, or, guys, calm down. Okay. Some of us have to stand up and fight, and we needed a change, and we forced changes that had we not done that, we wouldn't have gotten the big, beautiful bill. We wouldn't be able to do the things we're doing for the president because we changed the House. That's the kind of individual you need. You need someone who's willing to go out there, demonstrate, that they're going to stand up and fight. We can all say the same stuff, right? There's not going to be a dime's worth of difference between these candidates in terms of what we will say we will do. But my experience in life is it is only a handful of people who can sit there in the cauldron and take it and still stand up and fight and do the right thing. And whether it's law enforcement, whether it's issues on the DEI and woke and all that stuff. I put out a report with Marco Rubio when people were saying, oh, you can't talk about that. We put that report out like 3 or 4 years ago. I did the terrorist organization and, designate cartels as terrorists. In 2019, I was getting beat up. You can't do that, Chip. That's crazy. President's now done an executive order. Yeah. The SAVE Act. Go down the list of things that I've been out there leaning on. The border security stuff. I introduced a bill to fundamentally change the way we're dealing with the border security issue, put out the Texas border plan, drafted it, authored it, and rallied the entire delegation, except for one, you can guess who it is, who didn't sign it. And we got that done, and then that became a part of the speaker's deal that then guaranteed we got the vote on H.R. 2 to change the entire institution of focusing on border security. Leadership matters, and you got to have a demonstrated track record of doing it. And I think the voters will see that. And I'm proud to be getting a significant amount of support from the law enforcement community. I think that's going to be pretty clear.
Okay. Do you have any questions? Because I want to wrap this up.
Do we have time to talk about Sharia law and
Yeah.
that whole situation? Because you've mentioned that and it's in your questionnaire. How do you see us dealing with that? It's a huge concern for most of our supporters.
Yeah, to me, it's one of the biggest issues we face. And I will say this, I don't like to talk about these private communications. People have been, suddenly everybody was Charlie Kirk's best friend. And I won't say that. But Charlie and I had a good relationship, and we talked fairly regularly. The last substantive conversation we had was about Sharia law. And it was about Islamists. And it was about the Muslim invasion, if you will, and pressuring the West. And he said, and I agree, that our side, our folks don't get it. They don't get how bad this is. And we need to do something about it. He and I agreed. I sent him a floor speech I did 15 months ago on the House floor where I railed on this issue. I said, if you see the 6-7% of the UK, if you see what's happening in London, if you look at the now 10% of Paris, you see what's happening throughout all of France, it's coming right here, coming to the United States. And we better darn well do something about it. My office got calls from CARE and all the crazies were coming out and they got harassed. And I told them, well, I tell you what, when you get rid of a, unindicted co-conspirator as the head of your organization at CARE, then call my office again. They kind of went away. You got to be willing to tell them to pound sand. You got to be willing to stand up and fight Sharia law as inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, not just Epic City. I'm talking about throughout the state of Texas. And we got to get busy doing that. I co-sponsored Randy Fine's bill to ban Sharia law. I think it's somewhat redundant because it's already unconstitutional, but I think it's important for us to state it and have the law. And Randy and I agreed on that. And I'm introducing legislation either today or next week to add a serious vetting process on Sharia to anybody who's coming to the United States for visas or green cards or anything else. And by the way, I think we should freeze all visas and green cards until we get a handle on all this stuff.
Oh, yes.
And we've got legislation to do that as well. But that's federally. At the state level, at the AG's office, you've got to go in and enforce the law. And Sharia is inconsistent with the law. And so you got to go work with, again, jurisdictionally, got to go work with local DAs, pressure them to go after. We passed the bill that was meant to deal with Epic, but they're still end running a lot of that. But you do have Deceptive Trade Practices Act and other things you can use in the AG's office to go target them. And that's what I would do. And I would use every tool at my disposal plus the bully pulpit.
And I think we passed a bill a couple of sessions ago that said Sharia law would not be tolerated in the state of Texas.
But you have to go enforce it.
Right, exactly.
As with all of them.
We have a lot of bills that are completely ignored, which we kind of touched on earlier. Okay, so before we close, I would love for you to share maybe some of your endorsements, your website, and any last words that we didn't cover that you want to throw in.
Sure. I mean, look, people don't know about me. My family came to Texas in the 1850s. My grandfather was the chief of police of Sweetwater, Texas. Died when my dad was 7. He died of cancer. My dad had just been diagnosed with polio. My grandmother is now raising 2 kids, is a single mom in West Texas, and took care of my dad. Took 2 jobs, got him to therapy. He's still alive, 82, and he's still walking. Barely. He's got a walker, but he's still walking. And but she ran for county clerk, became the first woman county clerk in Nolan County, Texas. And I kind of grew up learning from her, and that was kind of my first itch into public service and talking to her. And my great-great-grandfather was a Texas Ranger. I love this state. I love law enforcement. So that's why I want to be the Attorney General. I'm really, really blessed to now have, I think we've got 20 sheriffs and growing that have endorsed me across the state of Texas, including in South Texas, including a Democrat, Benny Martinez, that I worked with all the time on border security stuff. And, Ted Cruz has endorsed me, Gun Owners of America, National Association of Gun Rights, a whole host of folks. And look, there were a number of endorsements that went out, particularly for Mays early. I couldn't get in this race. I had to finish the big, beautiful bill. Ken announced in April he's running for the Senate. I had to finish the big, beautiful bill. And then I had to stand with the people of Kerrville. We were going to announce a couple different times. I was like, I can't do that. I got to go help the folks that I represent. So by mid-August, I felt like Kerrville was in a good enough spot. And so I got in the race, and we've been racking up strong endorsements, and we'll continue to rack them up, I believe, as we keep moving across the state. And, I've got give a look at my voting record. It's pretty unassailable. I mean, I've got the 5 or 6 organizations that I'm the top score or the number one rank in terms of conservative, and then a whole bunch of others at A+, all the gun groups, all the life groups, all the fiscal groups, Club for Growth, all the entities that score people, either number one or top 5 or 10 in the House. And so, you know what you're going to get. And, I am enormously blessed to represent the best part, respectfully, of the best state and the best country in the history of the world. And I would just like to be able to take that across the state of Texas and fight for the people of Texas in the AG's office.
And your website?
ChipRoy.com. It's a pretty easy one. ChipRoy.com. And on Twitter /X, I'm ChipRoyTX. So ChipRoyTX.
That's probably a little more fun.
Easy name to spell. That's a bonus.
So thank you for this interview.
Sure.
This is a race that, like I said in the beginning, this is going to be a hard decision for a lot of our true Texans across the state. So I'm just going to ask all of you guys out there to make sure that you are praying for wisdom and discernment and make the best choice for Texas.
Amen.
All right. Thank you, Chip. We appreciate having you on.
Thank you. Hello, true Texans. Continuing in our episodes to interview statewide candidates. Today we are interviewing a candidate for the Attorney General. It is Senator Mays Middleton. He has served 2 terms in the House and 1 term as senator, and now he's going for the top cop job of Attorney General of the state of Texas, which is a really big set of shoes to fill. So welcome, Senator Middleton.
Thank you, Fran, for having me on today. Appreciate it.
We are
Thank
glad
you,
to have you.
Julie,
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. We're glad to have you. We've been trying to plan this conversation for a long time, so thank you for making time for us. But I think my first question is just let's kind of lay the groundwork. So we know that Chip Roy is in the race, and he's got like crazy name recognition. And last I saw, he was ahead in the polls, which was... Anyway, and then there's...
Depends on the poll.
Yeah.
Right.
Then there's...
Did Hillary run the poll?
Yeah, right.
No.
And then there's Reitz, who is endorsed by Paxton, which is a huge endorsement. And so what's your lane? Like, where are you fitting in this race?
So this is about a calling for me, not a job. And you look at my record, ran for the Texas House in 2017. Y'all invited me to Shark Tank. I remember that all those years ago.
That. Uh-huh.
I think I was the only one that actually won that year, challenged a liberal incumbent, and then was chairman of the Freedom Caucus after I won that race, and then got elected to the Senate in 2012. And when I ran for Texas Senate, President Trump said my conservative voting record was second to none. And ever since then, I've always been ranked as one of the most conservative members in the legislature, always in the top 2, either in the House or the Senate. It's about those proven conservative results. And look, there are a lot of people in political office for the gold pin and the title, right?
Yeah.
They want the position. They want the perks. And like our president, I give away my salary. I don't take the pension. I don't take the health care. I don't take the state license plate that, yes, that can get you out of traffic tickets. It's true. It can. I don't take the lobbyist.
Take one.
Yeah, no, I can't donate them, unfortunately. Wish I could, but, don't take the lobbyist NFL tickets or the ski trips. I'm only here to serve and fight for the conservative values that we believe in. And look, Macy and I, my wife and I, we put our money where our mouth is. I've been involved in the conservative movement for years. And we always know what y'all know is that we've got to get more conservatives elected to office. And for over a decade, I was on the Empowered Texans board years ago. I was on the board of Texas Public Policy Foundation right after that. And at the end of the day, this is about leaving it better than we found it and advancing the conservative movement. And I've been on the front lines electing conservatives and helping them get into office like Brian Harrison or Briscoe Cain or Brent Money or Joanne Schaffner or Hillary Hicklin. And look, that earns you opposition. It earns you enemies.
Sure
I mean,
does.
y'all know good and well, like when you take these positions in primaries against incumbents, like I have especially, and y'all have many times, people don't like you because of that. And
we're not just talking Democrats.
These are Republicans. Yeah, these are Republican incumbents that I've opposed, and you have as well. Because look, this is a show me, don't tell me business, right? We need to show results. And I am the only candidate in this race that's unafraid to do that. All the rest have been afraid to take positions like that, to go all out and devote their time and their talent and their treasure to elect conservatives to office. And not only that, look, I'm the only candidate in this race that's been protested at the Texas Capitol. I actually had a protest dedicated to me.
What was that about?
So it was over the Women's Privacy Act. And it was, I guess, about a month ago now. And it was these ugly green signs that had my face on it and these red X's, crossing out my eyes. And, they were chanting. Yeah,
that's my new goal. I need a sign that says Julie with an X through it.
It was certainly pretty appalling to see, actually, because these are men in women's dresses, right? That's who was protesting me. And they're doing that because I'm already defeating the left.
Yeah.
Right? They know who their true enemy is. And that's why I'm the only one that has had a protest dedicated to them at the Texas Capitol, because I'm defeating the woke mind virus already. And they're attacking me over it. I've actually received death threats over this as well.
Yeah.
And look, Charlie Kirk's assassination, this is our moment in time. This is our moment in America, this great revival where we have to take on the radical left. And they will threaten violence when they're losing, especially. And that's what they're doing. But we must persist. We cannot bend. I will never bend. I will never relent. We only have one Texas. That's it. This is the battle right here.
Yeah. So you have been, an ally, a friend of True Texas Project for a long time. And I know Fran has a list of bills that she probably wants to go over. But of course, our favorite is going to be the taxpayer-funded lobbyists. Tell us, it didn't pass.
You've been championing that for many, many sessions. And I think, as you know, it's a passion for me personally. And we still don't have it. What do we do next?
So you have been there, I think, in every single committee hearing. Julie, you've been to many of them as well, supporting my bill to ban taxpayer-funded lobbying. And look, what this is, it's the deep state, right? So your tax dollars are going to liberal Austin lobbyists that then do things like oppose election integrity, border security, the Texas Women's Privacy Act. It is literally the blocker to countless pieces of conservative legislation. It's also the way that the left wins without winning elections, right? I mean, that's what that really is. And it's $100 million per year.
That's a great point, that it's the way the left wins without winning elections.
And they, it's how they oppose the things that we believe in, like the RPT legislative priorities. You can be sure that on the other side of all of those is a taxpayer-funded lobbyist paid for with your tax dollars, right? And that's why it's so wrong. I mean, you see it again and again and again. Like, if you don't like Target, don't shop at Target. You don't have to pay for their lobbyists, right? If you don't like Bud Light, don't buy Bud Light. Please don't buy Bud Light, by the way. You don't have to pay for their lobbyists. But if you don't like what a city, county, or school district taxpayer-funded lobbyist is lobbying on, quit paying your property taxes.
Yeah, see what happens.
And then what happens? They take your home or your business. That is forced speech at the end of the day. And that is why I always take this fight on first, because I know it's the hardest fight in Austin. I know I'm challenging the deep state because it does defund the deep state. And what it also does is it ends what is the USAID of Texas.
Yes.
It is. It drains the swamp, and I actually have an opponent in this race that works for a taxpayer-funded lobbyist law firm. So I'm not really sure how you're going to go drain the swamp when you work for the swamp and work for a taxpayer-funded lobbying firm that gives to the Democrats that fled the state, like James Tallarico, John Busey, Trey Martinez-Fisher. I mean, that also shows you that practice really does prop up Democrats, right? That's really what that's about. And trust me, the opposition is intense. It is intense. You actually have a lot of legislators that are auditioning for future taxpayer-funded lobbying jobs. It's one of the reasons why it's so hard to pass.
Right, that's what they do. So I see fire in you as you're speaking about these things, which I like to see. I think we need more of that in our elected officials. But arguments I've heard against you have been he doesn't have enough fire. So is this like you're a nice guy, right? So is this like a renewed passion because you've seen how things are going, or have you always been this way and just not maybe portrayed it? Like, what would you say about the fire in your belly?
I've always been this way since day one. It's why I was an activist on the outside and the grassroots, then decided to go jump in the inside and challenge an incumbent, which, actually, I don't think any of my opponents have done that either. The willingness to go fight against an incumbent, that is a tough fight. I knocked on 6,000 doors to be an incumbent to get elected to the Texas House. I was willing to do that again for the Texas Senate. Fortunately, he withdrew and I didn't have to do that. But I mean, you have to be willing to go into these big battles, right? And take the risks, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I've been protested. I've gotten death threats more than once, actually. They've come after me several times. And then also the things that change how things work in Austin, right? Those really are the toughest fights. It's like President Trump draining the swamp. And I mean, that's why he's the greatest president we'll ever have, because he fights the swamp. He doesn't need anything from him. He doesn't care about being liked and loved by the swamp, nor do I. And at the end of the day, that's how you bring about these changes that make Texas the most conservative state in America. And that's how, at the end of the day, you advance conservative values, because the level of opposition is intense. It is intense. And from day one, I always run towards the toughest fights. I never run away. I'm never afraid. I've always taken them on, and I can't be bought or rented. And there are a lot of people in politics that can, and it's one of the reasons why they won't take on these fights.
I want to talk a little bit about that, because I know it happens with True Texas Project that people are like, oh, there's this rich West Texas oil man that's supporting you, as if it's wrong or bad to have money and to support your causes. And for the record, we don't get a ton of support from the rich West Texas. We get some, but not a lot. But what people say against you is, oh, he can just buy the election because he's a wealthy man. And they say that like it's a bad thing. And I would love for you to address that.
Well, praise God for those Texans that are so blessed to give back.
Yes.
And advance our conservative movement. Praise God for President Trump, who did the same thing.
Perfect example.
Where he sure didn't need that position. He never will. He doesn't need that gold pin. He doesn't need that title.
He doesn't take the salary.
He doesn't take the salary. He doesn't take the perks. He doesn't need the perks. But that they devote their time and their talent and their treasure to be servant leaders, whether they're on the outside, and you do take arrows on the outside as well, or whether they're on the inside as well. And I think we need more people in office that don't really need the job, that don't need the position, that don't need the title, that don't want the perks. You know, I don't want anything from this. And I can tell you as well that our big conservative donors in the state, some of the ones that you're talking about, they're there just to advance the conservative movement. And thank God for that.
Right? Like, where would we be if we didn't have allies that actually could help fund things? So, yeah.
I have a question. If you're elected Attorney General, one of the problems I see with the legislation that we get through the legislature, the good stuff, is lack of enforcement. You know, we passed a law about no dirty books in the school libraries, and we still have dirty books in the libraries. We passed a law about no DEI in the hiring of, at universities and public offices. It still goes on. And I think the job of enforcing that has to lie with the Attorney General. What do you think about that?
100%. I mean, I hear that again and again and again is, well, we've got this great law, but it's not being enforced, right? And so it's not just protecting and defending our laws and Constitution, it's enforcing it and taking a step back. So for the past 7 years, I've been fighting for these conservative laws. I've drafted a lot of them, written them, defended them on the House floor, defended them on the Senate floor. Who better to fight to enforce them than someone that's been on the ground floor to write them and get them passed? Which is exactly what I've done. And you go through the list, whether, I fought the atheists in one and passed the bill to put prayer back in our public schools. I fought the woke left's radical gender ideology in one and passed the Save Women Sports Act and the Texas Women's Privacy Act and the What is a Woman Act. I fought the big soda lobby in one and passed the bill to take soda candy and sweetened beverages out of our food stamp program. I fought the woke teachers unions in one and passed the bill that makes it easier to prosecute those predators like you were talking about, Fran, that are showing these obscene materials to our children, remove those affirmative defenses that made it impossible to do that. Fought the vaccine lobby and won and passed the strongest ban on COVID vaccine mandates in America. And I fought the Green New Deal scam, actually, and won and sponsored the bill that will stop wind farms on the Texas Gulf Coast. And the most recent bill that I passed, the Texas Women's Privacy Act, because enforcement is so important, I wanted to make sure it was the strongest one in America. It's $125,000 per day fine.
Yeah,
that's some big teeth in there.
Yeah.
And this enforcement is incredibly important because look, our laws and our Constitution, that's not a suggestion. You don't get to pick and choose like it's a cafeteria style. I'm going to pick that put that on the tray, I'll leave the rest. No, that's not how our Constitution works. That's not how our laws work in Texas. And that's why it's my top priority to make sure that I'm the chief protector, defender, and enforcer of our laws.
So,
and Constitution.
When we have these interviews, we ask questions that we hear. People are saying, well, he did this or he said that or he is this person or that person. So I don't want any of these questions ever to come across as an attack, but as an opportunity for you to respond to those accusations. So this one, I hear that either you're not a lawyer or that you got your license and you've never, ever used it. And how can you now become the most important lawyer in the state?
That is definitely I'll say a lie that's floating out there right now. I went to UT Law. I've been an oil and gas attorney ever since I got licensed in 2008. And I'll point this out as well. Ken Paxton, right? He was a civil attorney. That's a contracts attorney, a lot like what I do, actually, in oil and gas law. And the reason why we supported him in 2013 when he was running for attorney general is because he had that proven conservative record, right? He was one of the most conservative members in the House, in the top 2, like me. And in the Senate, I think he was top 1 or 2 in the Senate as well. And we supported him for attorney general because of that. And, he was a civil attorney at Gibson Dunn and I believe JCPenney and some other good law firms. But the point is, it's about who has that proven conservative record, which is what I have. And of course, I've been part of drafting these laws, writing them, getting them over the finish line, and I'm ready on day one to enforce them.
I think that's a significant point. That really is probably the most significant point you can make is that I wrote these bills, I fought for these bills, I got these bills passed, and now it will be my job to defend these bills. So,
and I've heard that you've never seen the inside of a courtroom, maybe civilly, but not criminally. And there's a lot of criminal issues for the AG's office. But I don't think Ken Paxton did either, when he was first elected. And it's not the AG's job to go into the courtroom. Am I right? That's why you have this whole team of attorneys that fight these cases. But you're in charge of all of them.
I would add to that even, look, this is a 4,000 person agency.
Yes.
It is a 750 person law firm, 750 lawyer law firm. You're the leader, right?
Yes.
You set the conservative agenda for the AG's office and for this entire state. And I think as part of that, it's important to have someone running it where, look, I've run an oil and gas company. I know how to sign the front of a paycheck. I know where the buck stops. I think you have to have that executive level leadership where you hire the best talent to go deliver these victories for our great state. And that's what you do as AG. You are the leader, and so many other states follow. They're looking to Texas all the time. I mean, Texas leads, they follow, truly. And you look at some of the great victories that we've had under Attorney General Ken Paxton. I mean, so many conservative victories. And that's exactly what he's doing, is he's setting the conservative agenda for this entire state.
Okay, so these interviews go by so fast, so we only have a couple minutes left. But 2 other things that were brought up. What is your stance on expanded gambling in Texas?
I've fought against the lottery. I don't know if you've seen, some of the bills that I've filed before on that. I mean, we had some great interim hearings on that showing the corruption where they illegally expanded it to the online applications on your phone, whether that was the virtual scratch-offs or the courier companies. And we exposed a lot of that corruption. Bob Hall and I did. And we were able to actually get rid of the Lottery Commission. But we went further than that. I actually had legislation that I worked right here with Fort Worth PD on. 8-liners are those machines that you see in the back of gas stations and stuff like that. And, those are basically, loopholes in the law right now. So they're looking for ways to expand gambling with these 8-liner machines that are basically video lottery terminals. Right. I mean, there's different names for them, but I authored legislation, passed it in the Senate. The House did not, unfortunately, to make those a higher criminal penalty where they're banned. in the great state of
And
Texas.
what about
so we needed to
the
make
casinos
sure,
like Sands and stuff?
Yeah, look, so at the end of the day, I've been fighting this fight for years. This is something that's law and order is near and dear to my heart. And because this job is not just about enforcement, it's about ensuring that Texas is the safest state in America to live and raise a family. And, whether that's what we've seen like at the Racing Commission as well. I don't know if y'all remember that, but in 2017 or so, the Texas Racing Commission illegally put slot machines in, or was trying to, in racetracks, right? And that was a recommendation that we were able to get out of the Freedom Caucus when I was chairman of the Freedom Caucus to eliminate it. That was in 2021. That was a huge initiative of ours while I was chair of that. And we were able to get that done. Unfortunately, as with many things, legislators don't always pass what conservatives are asking for.
Really?
I know that will shock you a lot.
We've noticed that.
Yeah, I know that will shock you. But look, I mean, this is about Christian conservative values. I just spoke at Faith Family Fest, Texas Values, and that's part of this great revival that we're in this nation. And we need to fight for biblical values in government.
Okay. No argument for me there. Another thing that I've heard, and I don't know if it's true, so here's your chance, that you have a bad relationship with Paxton and you whipped impeachment votes against him.
That's not true. General Paxton has been a champion for conservative values, and I voted to acquit on every last charge of impeachment.
Okay.
Now, they're talking about the Republicans that voted to impeach, and there were Republicans that voted to impeach and convict General Paxton. I voted to acquit on every single charge. And not only that, in his runoff election, did mailers to support him against George P. Bush. Also, I've donated to his legal defense fund before.
Good to know. I never understood where that came from either.
I don't either.
Well,
But
and
Lots of rumors start.
That could be Chip Roy that they're talking about. Obviously, he was on the other side of that and was very pro-impeachment.
Yes,
but not
he
only
was.
for General Paxton, he was pro-impeachment for President Trump and gave a big speech on the congressional floor in U.S. Congress with a mask on, saying he agreed with Mike Pence and that President Trump had committed multiple impeachable offenses and that he was against him. And then later on, sided with Liz Cheney to keep her as chair of the House Conference, which, I don't know if there's anyone with a stronger case of Trump derangement syndrome than Liz Cheney, right? I mean, it's pretty strong. Obviously, the primary voters dealt with that in the right way. But why would you push and vote and fight to keep her in charge of the House Conference? And when you've got someone like that, President Trump, again, it's the greatest president we've ever had in America. And to say that he should be removed and impeached and then say that George Floyd is some great guy and siding with him as well.
We definitely will have some interview questions when we have
Roy
on.
asking those questions.
But I think that backs up to a difference in judgment. There's a problem with the judgment of some of the other candidates in this AG race, whether that's saying President Trump should be impeached or whether they think it's a good idea to go work for a taxpayer-funded lobbyist firm in Austin that gives to Democrats. And you can't have that kind of judgment in the top cop job, the AG's job for the great state of Texas. You just can't.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions?
I don't think so. I appreciate you coming today, and I think you've been a champion for conservative values in the Texas House and Senate.
Well, I want to give him the last word. Is there like this is the thing I'm most proud of? Like, what can you tell us?
Well, that's my faith in the Lord. Simple. We're saved by grace through faith, and there's nothing that matters more than that. It's God, family, country. And, Macy and I are blessed with 4 little ones, and that's my daily reminder of what we're fighting for here. I'm a 7th-generation Texan. I was born here. I'll be buried here. I'm never going to D.C. And I will not give an inch to the left that is trying to drag our state down like California and New York and all the other failed states that we've seen, because we don't have another Texas to move to. This is it. This is it. And look, some of the things that I want to do in the AG's office, number one, are devote every resource and tool available to help President Trump in his border security agenda, whether that's deportation or enforcing the laws that we already have. And as part of that, that's enforcing the ban on sanctuary cities, like we talked about earlier, enforcement of that. And what will I do for those that are in the way of it? Zero tolerance. I will sue to make sure civil penalties are enacted, criminal penalties, and removal from office for anyone that is in the way of that border security agenda, that deportation agenda. 2, election integrity. We know how important this is. So I asked Governor Abbott add to the call the AG's power to prosecute election-related crimes. He did. Very grateful for that.
And it passed?
And it passed. We got it over the line in the House, in the Senate. Now, what does that mean? We need a standalone division in the AG's office with law enforcement powers to go after those that are breaking our election laws and hold them accountable. That is a huge priority of mine. And look, also, law and order, tough on crime, that's America first. I want to create a division that's devoted to rooting out cartels and organized crime because we don't know what's come over the border in the last 4 years. But it's up to us to get them out of here, lock them up, deport them, and make sure that we're enforcing our laws. And not only that, I want to add an anti-corruption division to it as well. Like we've seen in Harris County and other counties. Dallas County is a good example as well, nearby to here. There's zero tolerance for politicians profiting off their position. Yeah. I'm sick and tired of it. And someone that actually has done that, that's not elected, but needs to be investigated, is George Soros. Oh. And I'll make sure he's one of the first people that I investigate under that division.
Good.
I think those are like excellent closing comments to just really tell us this is my passion. This is what I want done. And I think as we opened this, I said that, Chip Roy has all this name recognition and Reitz has the Paxton endorsement. And so they're getting a lot of attention. And I wanted to make sure you get the attention that you need because I think you have a strong platform and you're a strong candidate. And I want to make sure true Texans are paying attention to that. So why don't you tell everybody how to get a hold of you, your website, whatever?
Well, I appreciate y'all having me on today. It's Mays Middleton, Mayes, MIDDLETON.com. And I'm grateful to have been endorsed by leading conservative organizations like Texas Values, Texas Homeschool Coalition, Texas Eagle Forum, Texas Family Project, Moms for America, Riley Gaines, and a majority of our Republican state representatives, and a majority of our Republican state Republican Executive Committee members. That's the governing body of our Republican Party of Texas, and they've all done that because of my proven conservative leadership. So follow me on Twitter and on Facebook and on Instagram, MaysMiddleton.com.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mays. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. 3 great interviews, 3 great candidates. You've got a big decision to make. Let us know how we can help. But in the meantime, here's to Texas.
And here's to true Texans.